Hello, Grace Community Church. Pastor Seth here, and we're looking at February 4th's reading. We're reading Exodus 10, verse 1, all the way through to the end of Exodus 12. Now, in this section, the plagues continue. And I want to highlight something that the Lord says that I think will give us some perspective on what's happening here. And this is in the first verse of chapter 10. He says this to Moses: "Return to Pharaoh and make your demands again. I have made him and his officials stubborn, so I can display my miraculous signs among them. I've also done it so you can tell your children and grandchildren about how I made a mockery of the Egyptians, and about the signs I displayed among them. And so you will know that I am the Lord." Now, on February 2nd, Moses kind of pleads with the Lord and says, "Why are you doing this? What is going on here?" And the Lord doesn't answer. He says, "Now you will see what I will do to Pharaoh." But here, God gives us the why. He says the why right here. He says, "I've made the officials stubborn for a specific reason, so that I can display my miraculous signs among them, and so that you can tell your kids from generation to generation about what God did here today, what I have done here today." And so this is the why. God is displaying his judgment against Egypt so that the world can see his miraculous signs through the overthrow of Egypt, but also so that the Israelites can communicate these truths, that God delivered them from slavery, with his mighty hand and his outstretched arm. And so this is an opportunity for testimony for the Israelites, but for the Israelites to the entire world. Because what's going on here is really spiritual warfare. Now, God is picking a fight with Egypt and their gods. And we see this in the plague of darkness. And the plague of darkness it shows that God is the God above the sun. And he darkens all of Egypt, but the light still shines on Israel. Now, this is against their sun god. They had a sun god that they worshipped. And so God is saying, no, you worship a God who is inferior to me. I am the God above all gods. And so what we see displayed in the plagues is that God is greater and above every other god among the nations. And so God is displaying his power for Egypt, but also for the nations to see that God is above all gods. But also, for another reason, God doesn't pick the greatest or the strongest people to be his people. He picks the weakest, the smallest, the slaves to be his and to deliver them. It would have been easier just to have a different people and to make a different covenant. But he is a covenanting God who doesn't break his promises. And as he has displayed through Moses, he says to Moses, "I am Yahweh. I am the caring God who cares about you and your suffering because of the covenant that I have displayed with Abraham and Isaac and Jacob and Joseph down through the ages." And so he's saying, I'm not a God who forgets, and I'm not a God who is weak. I'm a God who remembers and upholds and is stronger than every other God. Now that is one of the main points of the plagues. But here's another thing. The Passover, the first Passover, happens in chapter 12. And there is an extensive list of requirements for observing the first Passover. And so what this is God is told Moses that this is the culmination of all the judgment from the history of oppression that Egypt has had on my people. And here's what's going to happen. I'm going to kill the firstborn of everyone in Egypt, but I will not kill the firstborn of the Israelites if they sacrifice a lamb and they put the blood on the doorposts. That way the angel of death will know that is a people that have sacrificed themselves and given themselves to me. And so that's what happens. There's a list of requirements, but I want to look at something. This undergirds the fact that this is war. God is waging war against Egypt. And here's another way that we know that. He says to them in the instructions to eat the meal, "Be fully dressed, wear your sandals, carry your walking stick in your hand, eat the meal with urgency, for this is the Lord's Passover." So they're supposed to be fully dressed and ready to go at a moment's notice for the army of the Lord. And this is why do I say this? Because later on he says, I will bring out your forces, right? Celebrate the festival of unleavened bread in verse 17, for it will remind you that I brought your forces out of the land of Egypt on this very day. So he's saying your forces, your army has been released from Egypt because of me. And so this is a confirmation that God has finished the war and has brought them out of the people who have enslaved them for 400 years. And this is a look ahead for us, that we have a Passover lamb, because the Passover lamb every year in the Exodus and in the Old Testament, they had to sacrifice a lamb every year for the Passover and to remind themselves that God has passed over them and chosen them and delivered them. Well, Jesus is the Passover lamb. He is the lamb who has been slain, and he is a sacrifice that is above all sacrifices, for all sacrifices, for all time. He is the fulfillment of what Moses couldn't do, and that is God delivers us fully from the power of sin through the Passover lamb, Jesus. I hope you enjoyed this reading today. God bless you.